Vayishma Yisro Chosein Midian Kohen Midian Chosein Moshe is Kol Asher Asa Elokim LaMoshe Yisrael Amo 394. Ki Hotzi Hashem Es Yisrael MiMitzrayim. Did I miss something? Eliasaph, is something sailing past me? So Yitro hears, and everything Hashem did to Moshe and Yisrael, and he took them out of Mitzrayim. So what does he do? Vayikach Yisro Chosein Moshe Tzipora Yishes Moshe Achar Shilucha. He takes Tzipora and Moshe's two sons. And then he comes to join up with the Jewish people. So, Vayishma Yisro, what does it mean to hear? There are two things when you hear. There is hearing and there's understanding. Vayishma Yisro, everybody heard. The Medrash says that when the Yam Suf split, all water in the world split. Can you imagine guys drinking? And all of a sudden, it splits and he just runs down both sides on it. Right, because the water. Worse than that, the guy's doing a triple somersault reverse in the Olympics from 10 meters.
Oh no!
And the water splits, and the guy lands, and all the judges are saying they're 10. We've never seen that before. There was just a little bit of a splash, but other than that, it was a great landing. The possibilities are limitless over here. Guy's taking a shower. What happened to the shower nozzle? The water's splitting all over the place. You're in the bathtub, and all of a sudden the water. So the whole world knew about it.
You're on the toilet.
The whole world knew about it, right? The whole world. What they call the whole world's. So what does it mean? Yitro heard. Everybody heard. They heard the experience. The answer is that there's hearing and there's understanding. There's hearing and there's understanding. You understand what the ramification? You understand what this means? You understand this means there's a God in the world? Now, take a look at Rashi, because the commentaries talk about this Rashi. There's an interesting discussion here. First Rashi. Vayishma Yisro, says Rashi, Ma shmua shama uba. What news was it that he heard and he came along? All the Torah says is Yisro heard. What was it he heard? Says Rashi, Kriyas Yamsuf, he heard about the splitting of the sea, U'Mechemes Amalek, in the fight with Amalek. So it sounds like, well, he heard about Kriyas Yamsuf and he heard about Mechemes Amalek, and he said, boy, I got to join the Jewish people. But you see, in life, when we're impressed by something, you wouldn't say, well, the guy, you wouldn't say, well, he hit a home run. He's great. You know why he's great? Because he hit a home run and he hit a single. You wouldn't say that. You would say the other direction. You'd say, nah, he hit a single and he hit a home run, right? You go from Kal to Chomer. You wouldn't say, to emphasize something, once a guy hits a home run, so wow, he hit a grand slam and he also hit a bloop single. That doesn't, you'd say to the guy got on base twice. He hit a bloop single and he hit a grand slam. You go from, what's more impressive, the battle with the splitting of the sea or the battle with Amalek?
Must be the Amalekites.
Yeah, good, because Rashi said, yeah, that's a good. But in your heart of hearts,
yeah, the splitting of the
sea. Right, the splitting of the sea is definitely more impressive than the battle with Amalek. So why? So you could answer. Well, the Torah is just telling you the chronological order that he heard the splitting of the sea and then he heard the battle of the Amalekites. But it doesn't make sense. Just tell me what was the real thing that convinced you here? Right? If the Japanese surrendered to the Americans in World War II, why? If I say to you, well, there was a nuclear bomb and there was also, a tank battle, where they knocked out 3 Japanese tanks. I'd say no thanks. That is insignificant. All it takes is one thing. There was a nuclear bomb. That's all it takes. I don't care when the tank battle happened, before or after. It's not even significant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't add anything. They surrendered because of the nuclear bombs. That's why they surrendered. So what? So why does the Torah emphasize? Well, why did Yisro join the Jewish people? Well, there was the battle. There was the splitting of the sea, and Amalek, the battle with Amalek. What's that got to do with it? How did they get in here? What do you say?
The fact that Amalek would have even attacked the Jewish people after the splitting of Yam Suf was so great that there were actually people who were going to deny that Hashem even existed.
Was that your own idea?
Yeah.
Very good, very good. What do you say? I'll get to you in a second.
Also that when Kiryat Yam Suf happened, that it wasn't just Yam Suf that split, it was everything.
Everything split.
So they also saw other seas could have seen her. Or
But
was it
we're
every
talking.
water
You're
or just
right.
sea?
You're right. But here we're talking about Yisro. What Yisro saw. Yisro saw the
understood.
Kriyas Yamsuf.
Okay.
Yisro saw the Baal Amalek. So Eliyasuf, very good. That's one of the explanations. In other words, Yisro saw like this. He says, "Wow, there's a Kriyas Yamsuf." He says, and there are still people even after Kriyas Yamsuf who are capable of denying it and then attacking the Jewish people like Amalek. If you're still capable of denial even after Kriyas Yamsuf, I can't trust myself alone. I've got to join up to the Jewish people. I can't trust myself that I'm going to remain strong, fortified religiously with my belief in God if people like Amalek are capable of going against. Again, the plain meaning here is the chronological order, and the miracles happened to the Jewish people. So there were a couple of miracles, but the commentators say the deeper idea here is if you could see there's a splitting of the sea, and then you're still capable of denial. Whoa, I can't trust myself. If I'm like a believer, who says I won't be doing that in a couple? Therefore, Yisro goes and he joins up with the Jewish people. Yisro goes and joins the Jewish people. Now, he comes over and then take a look at Pasuk Zayin. Now, here's a man who's coming towards the Jewish people, right? Yisro is coming to the Jewish people. Page 394. So it says like this: Vayetze Moshe likras chosno. Moshe goes out to greet his father-in-law. Vayishtachu vayishak lo. He bows down and kisses. Vayishalu ish l're'eu l'shalom. They greet each other. Vayavo oel, and they enter the tent. Take a look at Rashi. It's the left column of Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom. Pasuk Zayin, left column of Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom. Says Rashi, Vayetze Moshe. Kavod gadol niskabed Yisro b'ozosha. Yisro got a lot of honor. Kevan sheyatza Moshe. You see Moshe Rabbeinu going out. Yatza Aaron, nadav avihu. So if Moshe is going, so Aaron says, well, if Moshe is going, I'm going to go with him. So nadav and avihu go with Moshe. Now, the Jewish people see Moshe, Aaron, nadav and avihu are going out. So what do? Umihu shera zelu yotze v'lo yotze. How could you possibly see them going somewhere and not go with them? So the Jewish people, the entire Jewish people came out to greet Yisro. Right? Yisro's on his way in, and all of Klal Yisrael, Moshe, Aaron, nadav, avihu, and the whole Jewish people. In other words, if you saw the Gedolei Ador moving in a certain direction, and you're out in the desert, and they're all moving, right? I'm going with them. I don't know where they're going, but I'm going with them. They obviously onto something. So, and if you see me going, you're going to go too. And if he sees you, he's going to go too. Next thing you know, the whole, all of Mir and Panovich and all these shivs, everybody's going. Where are you going? Here comes this man walking like, woo, what's going on here? And this is Yisro, who's Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law. So Yisro has the honor of being greeted by Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, the Gemara says over here that Moshe Rabbeinu comes out to greet him. So, first of all, we see the importance of greeting. The Gemara says that if you don't greet somebody who normally greets you first, you're stealing. Somebody who you know regularly greets you, you should greet him. Somebody who greets you regularly. And the Gemara says if you don't return a greeting to a poor man, you're stealing from him. Because all a poor man could often give you is a greeting. So if you don't return his greeting, it's like saying, well, don't need your greeting. And he often, remember, he feels that he would like somebody to acknowledge him. And so it's very severe. You're supposed to greet a poor man who greets you. And I think I mentioned to you once, the Gemara says that somebody who whitens his teeth to somebody else, Hamal bin Shinav L'Chavero, that's right, Yishai. Yishai, you should be on film, man. Turn towards the camera, not towards me. Hamal bin Shinav L'Chavero, somebody who whitens his teeth to his fellow, it's as if he's giving him a cup of milk.
I don't understand. What do you mean by whitening his teeth towards him?
Smile at somebody, like Yishai.
That was a smile.
I don't know, Yishai, that kind of looks like, one of those Batman villains. Whitening the teeth means you're showing your teeth, you're smiling. And obviously you whiten your teeth. So instead of just a little smile, like one of those smiles, is like a real smile. But it's got to be a real smile. I know a guy who puts it into practice because it's a mitzvah to do it. So it's always a very fake smile. It's like, they exactly like, and it's very, and you can tell like, okay, I am his mitzvah victim. He is using me. He's doing a mitzvah. I had a girl once at my house. She was a little older, and she wasn't married. She had some issues, and she used to come to our house once in a while for Shabbos. And I remember once she would say, I overheard, she's talking about, she said, she enjoys coming to the house because my wife treats her nicely. She says sometimes she goes to other houses, people just treat her like a mitzvah object. Okay, our guest is here. You are our mitzvah. And you don't want. And even if it's there's a football coach. There's a college football coach who once said, "The key to this business is sincerity. Once you can fake that, you got it made." So even sincerity, you got to do it in a way that people don't feel that they're a mitzvah item. Here, the Gemara. Now, pay attention carefully to the words of the Gemara. The Gemara says, if you whiten your teeth to somebody, it's as if you've given him a cup of milk. If you give him a cup of milk, why milk? When's the last time you had a guest here? A buddy of yours came into the house. What do you usually give him? You give him a beer or a Pepsi, right? And when's the last time? Hi, Mike, have a milk. What are you doing? An advertisement for the milk industry? You and Patrick Ewing? What's with the milk over here? It's as if you gave him a cup of milk. What's with the milk?
Nutrition.
Oh, says the comment. Obviously, milk is the sign of basic nutrition. Little cows drink cow milk. Humans drink human milk. And milk is the thing that they're always, when you're growing up, drink milk. It's good for you, make you grow big and strong, and then you'll get a college degree. It's all based on milk. So anybody who doesn't have a college degree just means they didn't drink enough milk. That's the logical conclusion. So I grew up on Nestle's Quick. I couldn't take it. I couldn't drink white milk, but I drink Nestle's Quick every morning. So I had sugar and chocolate every morning in my milk. I grew up very off. Then Pesach would come around, and the Nestle's Quick wasn't kosher LePesach. So my mother was in a panic. She tried everything. She tried cocoa. I didn't like it. It was too bitter. I didn't try this. She even got to the point where she bought kosher LePesach chocolate bars. She said, okay, you'll take a bite of chocolate and a sip of milk. Right, which I fulfilled 50% of. And finally got to my point where my father couldn't take the fighting anymore. He just said, "Forget it. He'll go a week without milk. He'll survive. Don't worry." And here I am. I still eat the chocolate bars though. So the what do you call it? So the idea is that a human being is, as much as physical nutrition is symbolized by milk, physical nutrition. Every human being has a need of emotional nutrition called approval. You have to be approved by people. And one of the ways you approve of people is that you smile at them. That's all it takes. I'm not talking about doing something odd, and I'm talking about being something that you're not. But the same person you see in a hallway that you walk past, you could just as easily smile at him. I think I read a bumper. I don't remember where it was, but somebody once said, if you smile, people think that you know something that they don't. Like, why is this guy smiling? Why is this guy smiling? What do you know that I don't know that you're smiling? Because most people are walking around with a serious look on their face. You walk around with a smile, so then people think either you're up to something, you're strange, or you know something that they don't know. So I had a guy here once at Orson Matt said to me, well, I smile at people on the street of Mea Sharim and they don't smile back at me. I said, come on, let's be honest over here. Take a look at yourself in the mirror. Here's a guy who's got an afro and he's got an earring. He's on the streets of Mea Sharim smiling at people. I mean, of all people, in America, you got to be careful. In America, you can't go around smiling at people and talking to people. I did this when I was my wife and I once flew to America. So in Israel, you talk to everybody and say, Shalom, Boker Tov, how are you? So I think I was in the airport in New York, and as I'm walking through the airport, we were passing, I said, hi. And I said, hi, how are you? And at a certain point, my wife said to me, could you please stop talking to people? This is not Israel. I went, oh, right. Yeah, I forget, that, people in America, you could get arrested, for various forms of accusations, just looking at people. You can't even look at people on the subway. And if you're on the subway, right? You don't look at anybody, right? Are you looking at me? No, I'm actually not, considering the fact that you obviously want to be looked at, otherwise you wouldn't be wearing a green hat. So you obviously want to be looked at, but you're not allowed to look at them anyway. So the Gemara is teaching you that nutrition, emotional support, emotional nutrition is a very basic form of it's a human need, and therefore that's what we have to be sensitive to. And Moshe Rabbeinu goes out and he greets Yisro. Okay, now. I'm skipping on because we don't have time, so let's go to the Ten Commandments. I just want to go through this a little bit because, there's some basics over here. Starting on page 406. Yeah.
Okay. I know that the parshas are named after, like, the first word that comes up. But in the parsha with the Ten Commandments, I think that like that would be like the most essential part. So why is the parsha called?
It's a
Yisro?
good question, and it's called Yisro because he added a parsha to the Torah. That's what Rashi, the first Rashi
That's what
says.
Rashi-
One of his names is Yeser because he miutar. He added a parsha, literally parsha. Now parsha doesn't mean the parsha is word divided up. This whole section with the judges, where he gives Moshe Rabbeinu advice on how to, if you already brought it up, so then let's go back there before we say this. Moshe Rabbeinu sees Yisro sees Moshe Rabbeinu. Take a look at page 396. If we're already here, let's take a look at this first. Page 396, 3 lines from the bottom of the page. Vayar Chosein Moshe is kol asher osa la'am. Moses saw that the people, well, back up one pasuk, pasuk Yud Gimel, 396, pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayhimi Mocharas was the next day, after Yisro joins up. Vayeshev Moshe lishpot asa. Moshe sits down to judge the people. 5 lines from the bottom. Vayamod ha'am al Moshe mina boker ada arev. 396, 5 lines from the bottom. The people stood over Moshe from morning to evening. Moshe's father-in-law sees what he's doing to the people who are on their feet waiting. So what are you doing? Why are you sitting alone? From morning to night, people are standing over you. I mean, this is not a good system, not for you and not for them. And then the next page, 3rd line from the top. What you're doing is not good. Novel tibol, you're going to wear out. Gam ata gam amazeh. It's too much. You can't have one man judging the entire people. And then he goes on and he gives Moshe Rabbeinu advice of how to run the people. How long has Yisro been there? A day. He's already given advice. The new guy comes into the shul, is right telling the rabbi how to run the shul. Right, so they say tongue in cheek, well, obviously he was Yisro converted. And this is the proof that he's really Jewish, because he's already given advice. Here he is, Yisro's in, he's been there a day, and he's already telling Moshe Rabbeinu how to run things. So there are 2 questions here. Number one, how does Yisro come? I mean, you haven't even been here. How does Yisro come across giving advice? Who are you to give advice over? Oh, you just joined up. I mean, listen, wait a day. Where does Yisro come across?
I guess also I would think about it like he's also the only person with kind of an outside perspective since he just got there.
Good.
Everyone's been there.
Good.
And who would also dare to give advice to Moshe?
Other than his father-in-law, right? Okay. On the other, right, the father-in-law is here. Okay, he's telling me how to run my life. Okay. But even more than that, even though you're certainly in the right track. Okay. So first of all, I heard from Rav Perlman. I think it's one of the first things I heard from when I came to Or Sameach the first time, when I came here as a student. So I heard a shiur from Rav Perlman. So he said, I remember this, we were going back quite a few years ago, when Rav Perlman said, Yisro himself was a man who pursued truth. Yisro, it says, worshipped every idol worship system in the world until he found Judaism. Well, that doesn't mean that he bowed down once and he left it. It means he studied it, he understood it, and eventually he said, no, this isn't it. That means he subjected himself to the harshest criticism. He was extremely, unbending with himself, and he subjected himself to a very high level of truth. He could subject himself to self-criticism. He said, this is not true, this is not right. Somebody who is able to do that for himself, he's somebody who could say it to other people. If you could are consistent with yourself, and when you're off, you're willing to criticize yourself, say what you're doing is not right, then you could go to somebody else and say, by the way, what you're doing is not right. Only such a person qualifies. But first you have to before you go around correcting everybody else, correct yourself, number one. Number two, this goes to very much in close to what you said. Not just the outside perspective. What was Yisro's role when he was with Paro? He was an advisor. See, Yitro is already a professional royal advisor. That's on his resume. So if he joins up the Jewish people, so it's only natural that you become a royal advisor, but even more than that. As a result of his advice to Paro, what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu's life was spared. So if there's anybody who knows what a benefit Yisro's advice is, it's Moshe Rabbeinu, because he wouldn't be alive if not for the fact that Yisro had given that advice. One second, you have to just hold for a few minutes. So if anybody knows that Moshe Rabbeinu was a beneficiary of Yisro's advice. So Yisro, it's Moshe Rabbeinu. The incident with Paro was where Moshe Rabbeinu lifted his hand, raised his hand, and he reached for the crown. And when he reached for the crown, there were two advisors. One was Bilam and one was Yisro. Bilam said that the kid, he was a baby at the time, he said that he has some sort of intelligence and he's going to try to, one day use, as a symbol that he's going to try to usurp the throne. Yisro said, no, he's just reaching, he likes the shine of the throne, of the crown, and then they did the test with the crown and with the gems and the fire and the coals, and Moshe reached for the coals. That saved Moshe Rabbeinu's life, okay? So you see that Yisro, Moshe Rabbeinu says, hey, this man's got a good track record, and I benefited from it, and therefore it's only natural, and we see that Moshe Rabbeinu implements his plan, which even that, there's a difference of opinion among the commentaries whether he implemented the plan because Yisro said so, or he was going to do it anyway, and he just let Yisro have credit for it. I'm going to do it anyway, I don't have to go tell you, yeah, I thought of that already. Let him feel good about it. But then what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? Now take a look, one second, we're not done yet. Take a look at what Moshe Rabbeinu does afterwards. Look at page 400. Look at the top of page 400. Vayishma Moshe l'kol chosdo v'yas kol asher amar. Moshe does whatever his father-in-law says. Vayivchar Moshe anshe chal mikol Yisro v'yiten osam roshim ala'om. He makes them judges, heads of the people. Sorry alofim, sorry meos, sorry chamim, sorry asaros. They judge the people. And look at the last pasuk in this section. Moshe sends his father-in-law off. So Rashi says he sends him off legayer b'nei mishpachto, to convert his family members. One of the commentators says, you know why Moshe sent them off? I can't have somebody from the outside coming in and all of a sudden, he's starting to tell everybody what to do here. He means well. You find this in life all the time. But the fact that he's already willing to speak up, he spoke up to me, it was a good idea, I'm going to implement it. But who's the next person in Klal Yisrael he's going to speak to? Who else is he going to go and start giving advice to? Who else is he going to tell how to run their life? And where's he coming from? What experience does he have? What qualifies it? So he was an advisor as a professional. Who says you're an advisor in Torah? Gentlemen, I've told you this many times. This happens in this yeshiva many times, where a guy will come over to you and tell you what to do and give you advice. And one of the classic mistakes people make when they give it, there's a difference between being well-meaning and being qualified. A lot of people are well-meaning. Your aunt is well-meaning when she tells you how to run your life. That doesn't mean she's qualified. She's biased, and she's not got your interests at heart necessarily. She got her own interests at heart. Your grandparents, your aunt, could be even parents in some cases. So you always have to wonder, where are people coming from? And the classic advice, the classic mistake people make in all areas of life, is people simply project themselves onto you as being the same. If it was good for me, it'll be good for you. That's a mistake. Because the first rule of advice is I got nothing to do with you. Just because it worked for me, I have to think about what works for you, not what works for me. Because you and me are different people. Just because it worked for me, it might be exactly the opposite of you. It might be exactly the opposite. I had a guy here once at Or Sameach, say he had a very well-meaning brother-in-law. The brother-in-law advised him that he should leave the yeshiva. Go to a different country. So I called in the brother-in-law, saw the brother, I said, could I ask you, what qualifications have you got to advise him? He says, well, I know him well, he's my brother-in-law. I said, right, but what are your qualifications to give advice? Have you ever advised people? Do you know what goes into giving advice? Do you know what to take into consideration? You're well-meaning. And well-meaning, there are a lot of well-meaning people. What are your qualifications? You don't have the qualifications to advise. You don't know what you should be looking at, what factors, what the broader picture. You haven't got the experience to advise. That's one of the classic examples that people make, is they simply predict, well, it was good for me, so it'll be good for you. And if I learn Nach, you should learn Nach also, because Nach is good. How do you know Nach is good? How do you know it's good for him? How do you even know it's good for you? You only think it's good for you because it feels good. Not everything feels good in life is good for you. Toffees are also taste good. Doesn't mean that a lot of them are good for you. You understand? That's a classic example. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Vayishalach Moshe, there's no accident here. Okay, yes, so you gave advice, we implemented, now go. Now go. Yeah, convert your family members, do what you want with them. I can't have you around the Jewish people right now. They're too vulnerable. I don't know what's the next thing you're going to tell them. Okay, now let's go to the Ten Commandments. Seres Adibros. Okay, the Jewish people are going to accept the Torah. And if you take a look, oh, there's so much over here. You know what? We better do this first. We'll have to save some of this for next week. Tomorrow there's no shir, and then Wednesday there's no more shir. Well, tomorrow the Rav Schiller is speaking, and Wednesday's a Tu B'Shvat for Tish. So we're not going to have shir, but we'll have to save the Aseret Dibros. There are a couple of fundamental things here. Take a look at page 400 again. Take a look at page 400 again. Okay, very important to understand this. Starting right on Perik Yates Pasuk Aleph, 5 lines from the bottom. B'chodesh hashlishi l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim b'yom hazeh bo midbar Sinai v'yisu me'Refidim. They traveled from a place called Refidim v'yivo midbar Sinai v'yachanu b'midbar v'yichan sham Yisrael neged hahor. They camp opposite of the mountain. And Chazal tell us ke'ish echad b'leiv echad, like one man with one heart. Ke'ish echad b'leiv echad, one man with one heart. Now, the idea here is, do you know that the evil inclination is called a mountain? Remember, we've spoken about how in the Gemara the evil inclination appears as a mountain. And ki ish echad b'leiv echad means they're opposite the mountain. It means the best way for the Jewish people to fight the evil inclinations, if we're joined together, we're in unity. That's probably the most difficult thing, is to be united. Now, this also has to be kept in proper perspective, because people always say, well, the Jews are always fighting with each other. Jews may talk a lot. Italians are fighting with each other, and Irish fight with each other. Very, very rarely do you see a fist fight among Jews. Jews do a lot of talking, but there's very little violence among Jews. No, Jews don't hit. But getting along is sometimes a challenge, right? Ki ish echad b'leiv echad. So it says neged ahar. The Jewish people, Chazal say, they camped as one with one heart, which itself is probably the biggest miracle of receiving the Torah. Now look at the next pasuk. Moshe Allah Ela Elokim. Moshe went up to God. There's a pasuk straight in the Torah that tells you that. Moshe goes up against to Hashem. Page 400, 2 lines from the bottom. Vayikra elav Hashem minahar. Hashem calls down to him from the mountain. Lamor as follows. Pay attention very carefully to wording here, gentlemen. Ko somar leves Yaakov. So you shall say to the house of Yaakov. V'sagid, and you shall tell livnei Yisrael, to the Jewish people. Okay? So Rashi points out over here, Beis Yaakov is the women. That's why the girls' school movement was called Beis Yaakov. Not only that, I know a girls' school in Israel that is called the first 2 words of the pasuk, Ko Somar. Ko Somar. There's a school called Ko Somar, because that comes right before Beis Yaakov. So Beis Yaakov was the girls' school movement, because Beis Yaakov refers to the Jewish women. V'saged, but you shall tell livnei Yisrael, to the men. Now, first of all, there are several things that are puzzling in this pasuk. First of all, the women come first. The women come first. But they go with the name Yaakov, which is the secondary name. Yaakov is the heel. Yisrael is the name of Yaakov, which means prominence. So the women go first, but they get a secondary name. Plus it says Kosomar to the women, Visaged, Tomar and Tagid, in modern Hebrew, Tagidli, tell me. Tomarli, say to me. The difference is Tomar is softer. Tagid is harsher, more direct, less tactful. When you speak to the women, you got to be soft. You got to speak to them softly. Speak to the men, Tagid. Dvorim hakoshim ki gidin, Chazal say. A gid is a sinew that's dried up. When a sinew dries up in the body, a tendon or a sinew dries up, it becomes very hard. Talk direct to the men. The women, it's got to be soft and flowery. Somar. The women come first, but they get the name Yaakov. What's going on here? So 2 things. First of all, the women are honored. They're placed first, because it was in their merit that we got out of Mitzrayim. Number 1. Number 2, if you get the women, the men are going to follow. Right? If it's a couple that gets married, if the wife is frummer than the husband, that house is going to be frum. If the husband's frummer than the wife, not necessarily. But the women are frummer, right? And anything the women take on, That's it. You know, the men, the women clean for Pesach. You know, the men are always ready to eat chametz, right? The women, the women do the cleaning for Pesach. There's no chametz in the house. If it was left to the men, we'd be eating rolls on Pesach, right? That's why the women are entrusted with the kashrus, with the family, with everything else, because the important stuff. When men walk into the kitchen, they could trafe up the kitchen in 2 minutes, right? The wife's got everything under control over it. The husband doesn't care. All he cares about is finding a salami sandwich. The wife is watching him. Every husband who knows, he walk into the kitchen. If your wife is there, she's just like. She's watching every move you make. Then you open up a drawer. That's milchiks. Woo, right or not? Constantly, and she'll catch you from the other room. She can even hear you. She's in the other room. You open up a drawer. That's the parv drawer. How did you know? I did. All I did was open a drawer. Right? And they got radar. Right. So what is the idea? Why are they called Beis Yaakov? By the way, when I went to day school in Chicago, my day school was called Beis Yaakov Hebrew Parochial School. Because some guy named Yaakov donated the money, so they ought to call it Beis Yaakov. So not only we lost to the other day school in baseball, but they even called us a girls' school. It was traumatic growing up like that. I went to Beis Yaakov Hebrew Parochial School. That's what they called us. The girls, they called us Beis Yaakov Hebrew Pinocchio School. And then they beat us at baseball, and then they laughed at us for being a girls' school. It was terrible. I survived it somehow, but I don't know how. And then they couldn't do it when I was there. Now it's called Tiferes Tzvi. They changed the name eventually because Rabbi Meisels was nifris. They named it after Rabbi Meisels. Couldn't happen when I was there. No, that was Beis Yaakov. So I went to Beis Yaakov Hebrew Parochial School. Never overcame it. Scarred for life. So the girls are called Beis Yaakov. Now, why? The woman is called Beis Yaakov. Why?
Because of the foundation.
The foundation. The woman is the home. The woman is the home.
About the four mothers.
The mothers are the home. The woman is the home. And there's one of the Amoras in the Gemara says, I never called my wife my wife. I called her my home. Me olam lo karasi li ishti karasi li ishti basi. I called my wife my home. The woman is the home. The wife is the home. The wife creates the mood in the home. She is the home. You are a visitor, right? She is the home, number one. Number two, the commentary said like this. There are two types of medicines. There's one type of medication. You swallow a pill. Could be a bitter pill, but you swallow a pill. That's one type of medication. That's Torah learning. You swallow the pill, take it down with water, without water, but you swallow it. There's another type of medication, somebody, let's say, who has asthma. What do you do with him?
Inhale.
You put him in a room and you set out the vapor in the room, and then the person inhales the vapor, right? If that's all he inhales. But he inhales the vapor, okay? In a Torah home, the man swallows the pill. He brings that into the home, and that creates an environment in the home. The woman breathes that in the home. She's Beis Yaakov. Her growth is bringing it in. Now, I think I've mentioned this in the past. If a woman walks into this room and she's learned the entire Torah, she knows the entire Torah back and forth. Maybe she's a reincarnation Yishai. I don't know how she knows it, when she learned it, what type of feminist tendencies she has. She knows the entire Torah start to finish. You are not obligated, according to halacha, to stand up for her. A man who's a Talmid Chacham walks in, you have to stand up for a Talmid Chacham. If Rabbi Zweig walks in, you have to stand up for him. A woman walks in, knows the entire Torah, you don't have to stand up for her. There's no such thing as a Talmidah Chachama based on scholarship. But if a woman is married to a Talmid Chacham and she walks into the room, you have to stand up for her. The only book she knows is the big book of Jewish baking. The only book she knows. You have to stand up for her. Why? Because a woman's growth does not come from the book. A woman's growth comes from, there's an expression in the Gemara, a Torah scholar is called a chaver. A chaver means a Talmid Chacham. Eishes chaver kechaver. The wife of a Talmid Chacham has Talmid Chacham status. Why is that? Because by living with him, she absorbs his Torah and his outlook. That's what he brings into the home. She absorbs it almost by osmosis. And her growth is as a result of living with him, not a result of anything she reads in the book. What she reads in the book, she may distort. But what she lives with her husband, and she lives his Torah, that's how she grows. That's why they're called Beis Yaakov. She grows by being in the home, and I could tell you, I could speak to a woman on the phone for a minute, and I could tell you if she's the wife of a Talmid Chacham or not. Just from the way the woman talks, just the way the woman talks on the phone, she's got the head of a Talmid Chacham, even though she's a woman. She's got the head of a Talmid Chacham. That's what the Torah is telling you. The growth of the woman is paralleled by the husband. You should know that when you get married, your wife will form your behavior. Your wife will shape your behavior. You're going to shape her thinking. It's a remarkable cross. It's a remarkable, because the husband brings in the Torah to the home, the outlook, the wife absorbs it. My wife has said to me many times, she doesn't even remember how she thought before she was married. I don't remember how they shot, and I don't remember how I behaved before I was married, right? That's what happens, because you have the wife, and that's why you've been at a Shabbos table where the husband is saying over some fascinating idea and presenting an outlook or an idea. In the meantime, his wife is pushing a napkin at him, because he's got a fistful of zucchini while he's getting all excited, and his wife is pushing over a napkin, or he's waving a polky, a drumstick at you while he's talking. His wife is pushing it, and it's very true, because the women shape the husband's behavior. Because women are generally more refined, and the husband shapes the outlook, he shapes the thinking. I heard about a woman says to her friend, woman sitting and she's talking to her friend, she goes, after 20 years of chew with your mouth closed, don't interrupt people while they're talking, use a napkin, say please, say thank you, say excuse me, I'm finally done with my husband, now I can start working on the kids. That's her job. Her job is to train them. It's a training ground. So the Torah is telling you that's the basic. The men are Bnei Yisrael. You're on top, but you're the Yisrael. You're the prominent one. But we tell you harshly, straight to the point. The women, you have to talk gently. That's a rule in life. It's a rule in life. Talk to the women. They'll understand you. They don't care what you say. They care how you say it. How you say it is far more important than what you say. If you say it nicely, they'll do it. And if you say the most logical thing, but you're harsh about it, they get upset. When I was learning, I'll tell you a funny story. I was learning. I was studying with my Rebbe right before I got married. There's a Hasidic Rebbe in Chicago, very holy man, Hasidic Rebbe, and he was teaching me what marriage is about. How to treat a wife and how to respect her and honor her. We sat there talking for about an hour. And after about an hour, I said to him, I'm talking to him, I'm listening, I'm thinking, boy, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. After about an hour, I said to him, it sounds like when you get married, you got to be a shtickle psychologist. You got to be a little bit of a psychologist. So he gets real excited. He sits forward, he says, Ram David, more than a shtickle. You got to be you got to talk to him a certain way. That's Beis Yaakov. That's Beis Yaakov. Tomar, say it gently. Say it gently. That's the difference between the men and the women. Okay, next week in Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to go analyze the Aseret Sedibris a little bit.